Hey guys, tonight we're going to dim the lights and drift back to a time of royal intrigue, power struggles, and, let's be honest, a good bit of disturbing behavior. Forget the fairy tales and the romanticized notions of kings and queens, because we're diving into the disturbing story of King Henry VIII. This isn't just about 6 wives, it's about unchecked power, a relentless obsession with a male heir, and a monarch who literally tore his kingdom apart to get what he wanted. You're about to step into a world where a king's personal desires became national policy, where a simple marriage dispute could lead to beheadings, and where standing in the way of the monarch's will was a fast track to the executioner's block. Frankly, if you were living in Tudor England, you'd probably spend most nights praying you never caught the king's eye, for good or ill. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes not to the clamor of a bustling royal court, but to the quieter, more contemplative life of a second son. The year is 1491 and you are Henry Tudor, born at the royal palace of Placentia in Greenwich. You are a spare, not the heir. Your older brother, Arthur, is the Prince of Wales, destined for the throne, destined to marry the Spanish princess, Catherine of Aragon, and cement England's alliance with one of Europe's most powerful kingdoms. This initial position, not being the direct heir, profoundly shapes your early life. Unlike your brother, burdened by the expectations of kingship from birth, you are free to pursue your passions. This distinction, being the spare, is a key detail that often gets overlooked in the narrative of your later tyranny. Your childhood is one of immense privilege, certainly, but also one of extensive intellectual and physical training. Your father, King Henry VII, the shrewd, parsimonious founder of the Tudor dynasty, ensures you receive a first-class education. You are fluent in Latin and French, conversant in Italian. You study theology, astronomy, arithmetic, and music. You are a gifted musician, composing your own songs, playing the lute and virginals with skill. You are also an avid sportsman, excelling at jousting, hunting, tennis, and archery. You possess a powerful physique, standing over 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, and immensely strong. You are, in essence, the Renaissance ideal intellectual, artistic, and athletic. You are vibrant, charismatic, and everyone who meets you is struck by your boundless energy and charm. This early portrayal of you as a talented, charismatic prince contrasts sharply with the tyrannical king you become. You grow up watching your father, Henry VII, meticulously rebuild England after the devastating Wars of the Roses. He is a king who values stability, economy, and strategic alliances. He is careful with money, and ruthless when necessary, but always with an eye towards securing the Tudor dynasty. You see his cautious approach to governance, his relentless pursuit of legitimacy for a relatively new royal house. You also see the immense importance he places on a male heir, a bedrock principle of dynastic survival in an age where queens regnant were rare and often controversial. This constant emphasis on a male heir, though seemingly benign in your youth, will become a terrifying obsession later in your life, a hunger that devours your kingdom and your wives. Your elder brother, Arthur, is a delicate boy, often sickly. You, by contrast, are robust and full of life. You are groomed for a career in the church, perhaps even destined for the Archbishopric of Canterbury. This path would have involved rigorous theological study, a life of celibacy, and immense spiritual power. But far removed from the daily machinations of secular government, you probably enjoyed the relative freedom this afforded, the intellectual pursuits, the music, the sports, all without the crushing burden of royal succession. This early potential career in the church is a fascinating what-if that highlights the unexpected turn your life takes. It suggests a different path, one where your formidable intellect might have been channeled into spiritual rather than temporal power. Then, the unthinkable happens. In April 1502, your brother Arthur, Prince of Wales, suddenly dies, likely from the sweating sickness. He is barely 15 years old, and he has been married to Catherine of Aragon for only a few months. His death is a catastrophic blow to the Tudor dynasty, the meticulously planned alliance with Spain, so crucial to England's stability, now hangs in the balance. And you, Henry, the second son, the spare, are suddenly thrust into the spotlight. The new Prince of Wales, the unexpected heir to the English throne. The carefree existence you knew vanishes overnight, replaced by the suffocating weight of royal duty and expectation. This sudden, jarring shift in your destiny is the pivotal moment that sets your disturbing story in motion. Your father, King Henry VII, immediately begins to strategize. The alliance with Spain must be preserved. Catherine of Aragon is a valuable pawn, and her dowry, a staggering amount of money, is too important to lose. The solution to him is clear. You, the new Prince of Wales, must marry your deceased brother's widow. This presents a significant theological problem. Leviticus 20:21 states, "If a man takes his brother's wife, it is an impurity. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall be childless." This biblical verse, seemingly innocuous at the time, will become the source of an unprecedented crisis that will reshape England. However, both Catherine and Arthur steadfastly insisted their marriage was never consummated, thus rendering the Levitical injunction moot in their eyes, as it only applied if the marriage was completed. The Pope, Julius II, convinced by their sworn testimony, issues a papal dispensation, declaring that the marriage was indeed unconsummated, and therefore allowing you to marry Catherine. This papal waiver, granted with apparent ease, will later become the very foundation upon which your future marital crisis rests. A thin theological thread you will later attempt to sever. On April 24th, 1509, your father, Henry VII, dies. You are just shy of your 18th birthday. You step onto the throne as King Henry VIII, a young, handsome, charismatic, and seemingly perfect Renaissance prince. The country rejoices. You are everything you're cautious. Frugal father was not exuberant, athletic, and eager to make your mark on the European stage. Your first significant act as king is to marry Catherine of Aragon on June 11th, 1509, a mere 2 months after your accession. Your lavish coronation follows just weeks later. The early years of your reign are a whirlwind of festivities, jousts, and a seemingly blissful marriage. You are a king who loves lavish display, who surrounds himself with scholars and artists, and who is determined to assert England's place as a major player in European politics. This early period of your reign, full of promise and popularity, stands in stark contrast to the later tyrannical years. A stark reminder of the king you once seemed destined to be. You throw yourself into governance with youthful enthusiasm. Though perhaps with less attention to tedious detail than your father, you rely heavily on trusted advisors. Particularly Thomas Wolsey, a brilliant, ambitious churchman who rises rapidly through your favor. Eventually becoming Lord Chancellor and a cardinal, Wolsey becomes your most indispensable servant, managing both domestic and foreign policy, orchestrating your early military campaigns against France, and negotiating treaties. He is the engine behind your early reign, allowing you to indulge in your passions while the affairs of state are handled with cunning efficiency. This delegation of immense power, while common for monarchs, inadvertently allows you to initially avoid the intense administrative burdens of kingship. contributing to your later impatience when your will is challenged. Your ambition, however, is not just for glory on the battlefield or in intellectual pursuits. It is, first and foremost, for a male heir, the stability of the Tudor dynasty, still relatively new and fragile after the Wars of the Roses, hinges entirely on a secure male succession. You desperately need a son to continue the line, to prevent a return to the bloody civil wars, to ensure your legacy is not merely one of temporary glory. Catherine of Aragon, devout and dignified, provides you with several pregnancies, but the results are devastating. Miscarriages, stillbirths, and infants who die shortly after birth become a tragic, recurring pattern. Only one child survives a healthy daughter. Mary, born in 1516. While you cherish Mary, a daughter cannot, in your eyes, fully secure the dynasty. As the years pass, your anxiety grows. You are a strong, virile king, but you have no living sons. You begin to interpret this string of misfortunes as a divine curse. You revisit the biblical passage from Leviticus, which stated that a man who marries his brother's wife will be childless. You begin to genuinely believe that your marriage to Catherine, despite the papal dispensation, is invalid in the eyes of God, a sin that prevents you from having a legitimate male heir. This personal conviction, deeply rooted in your religious beliefs and overriding dynastic anxieties, becomes the driving force behind the most disturbing chapter of your reign. This deeply personal theological crisis, rather than just a simple desire for a new, younger wife, is a fundamental, often misunderstood, motivator for your subsequent, unprecedented actions. The popular historical understanding of you as merely lustful often overlooks this genuine spiritual struggle and existential dynastic dread. Your search for a male heir, now coupled with a growing certainty of divine disfavor, becomes an all-consuming obsession. You look at your marriage to Catherine, now long and enduring, and see only barrenness and divine judgment. You realize that a new wife is the only path to the son you so desperately crave, the solution to your perceived divine punishment. And then, your restless eye falls upon Anne Boleyn. Anne is not a conventionally beautiful woman by the standards of the time, but she is intelligent, witty, charming, and possessed of a sharp mind and an independent spirit. She is also, crucially, unwilling to become your mistress. She will only give herself to you as your lawful wife, as queen. This unwavering demand is the catalyst for the great matter, the unprecedented quest for an annulment that will plunge England into religious and political turmoil, changing it forever. You want a son, and she holds the key, but only on her terms, a challenge that will lead you down a truly disturbing path. You are standing at the precipice of a decision that will shake England to its core and reshape the religious landscape of Europe. Your obsession with a male heir, fueled by Catherine of Aragon's inability to provide a living son, and your own growing conviction that your marriage is cursed by God, has become an unyielding force. The year is the late 1520s. Your eyes are fixed on Anne Boleyn, a woman of sharp wit, independent spirit, and, crucially, an unwavering refusal to be your mistress. She demands to be your wife, your queen, and the mother of your legitimate son. This is the great matter as it becomes known, and it will consume the rest of your reign. You begin the long, tortuous process of seeking an annulment from Pope Clement VII. Your argument is rooted in the Old Testament, specifically Leviticus 20:21, which states, "If a man takes his brother's wife, it is an impurity. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall be childless." You argue that the papal dispensation granted by Pope Julius II, which allowed you to marry Catherine in the first place, was invalid because it contradicted divine law. Therefore, your marriage to Catherine was never truly legitimate in God's eyes. and your daughter Mary is illegitimate. This theological justification, however convenient, is what you genuinely believe, and it drives your relentless pursuit of annulment. This biblical interpretation, a pivotal detail in your story, is a central point of historical and theological debate. With many scholars still arguing its validity and your sincerity, your chief minister, Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, a man who had risen from humble beginnings to become the most powerful figure in England next to yourself, is tasked with securing this annulment. Wolsey is a brilliant diplomat and administrator, accustomed to getting results. He throws himself into the task, maneuvering through the intricate politics of the Roman Curia. However, the timing could not be worse for you. Pope Clement VII is effectively a prisoner of Emperor Charles V, Catherine of Aragon's immensely powerful nephew. After the brutal sack of Rome in 1527, Charles V, a devout Catholic and the most dominant ruler in Europe, has no intention of allowing his aunt, Queen of England, to be cast aside and publicly shamed. The Pope is caught between a demanding English king and an all-powerful Holy Roman Emperor. He delays, prevaricates, and ultimately refuses your request for an annulment. You grow increasingly frustrated with Wolsey's lack of progress. The years drag on, and Anne Boleyn, ever the shrewd strategist, maintains her steadfast refusal to become your mistress. Increasing your desire to legitimize your union with her, she whispers in your ear, suggesting that Wolsey is either incompetent or deliberately stalling. You begin to suspect that Wolsey, with his immense power and wealth, is more loyal to the Pope and his own ambitions than to your royal will. This growing distrust, fueled by Anne and your own impatience, marks the beginning of Wolsey's precipitous downfall. In 1529, your patience finally snaps. You strip Wolsey of his offices and wealth, accusing him of premonire exercising papal jurisdiction in England without royal license. He is arrested and dies on his way to face trial for treason in 1530, famously stating, "If I had served God as diligently as I have done the king, he would not have given me over in my gray hairs." His dramatic fall serves as a stark warning to anyone who might stand in your way. It demonstrates your growing ruthlessness and your willingness to destroy even your most loyal servants if they fail to deliver what you demand. This chilling swiftness with which you discarded Wolsey is a brutal illustration of your absolute power. With Wolsey gone, you begin to take matters into your own hands. You appoint new, more pliable advisors. Chief among them, Thomas Cromwell, a brilliant legal mind who understands how to navigate the complex waters of parliamentary law, and Thomas Cranmer, a devout theologian who shares your anti-papal sentiments and will later become Archbishop of Canterbury. These men are instrumental in implementing your new strategy if the Pope won't grant an annulment. Then you will simply bypass the Pope. This is where the truly disturbing story of your reign begins to unfold. As your personal desire for a male heir starts to dismantle centuries of religious tradition, you initiate a series of legislative acts through Parliament, systematically breaking England's ties with Rome. This is not a sudden, singular act, but a gradual, deliberate process, often referred to as the Reformation Parliament. In 1532, the Act and Restraint of Annats limits payments to Rome. Then comes the Act and Restraint of Appeals in 1533, which prevents appeals to Rome and declares that England is an empire, meaning it has no earthly superior. This crucial act effectively makes you the supreme legal authority in England, placing your will above that of the Pope. This legislative offensive, spearheaded by Cromwell, is a profound historical shift, moving England away from papal authority, a fact that fundamentally reshaped the country's religious and political identity. In January 1533, with the Act and Restraint of Appeals now law, you secretly marry Anne Boleyn. She is already pregnant, a fact that adds immense urgency to your actions. In May of that same year, Archbishop Thomas Cranmer, now the highest ecclesiastical authority in England under your supremacy, formally declares your marriage to Catherine of Aragon null and void. A few days later, he declares your marriage to Anne Boleyn valid. Catherine, who steadfastly refuses to acknowledge the annulment, continues to refer to herself as Queen, living in quiet defiance until her death. You are now married to Anne, and the kingdom awaits the birth of your longed-for son. On September 7, 1533, your daughter Elizabeth is born. It is a moment of profound disappointment. You had been absolutely certain it would be a son, a male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty. While Elizabeth is healthy and bright, her birth is a crushing blow to your hopes, and a source of immediate anxiety for Anne. Who knows, her position depends on providing you with a male child, this desperate craving for a son, overriding all other considerations, is a recurring, disturbing theme in your story. This unexpected birth of a daughter rather than a son sets off a chain of increasingly desperate and brutal actions. The following year, 1534, Parliament passes the Act of Supremacy. This act declares you, King Henry VIII, the supreme head of the Church of England, legally severing all remaining ties with Rome. It's a seismic shift, transforming England from a Catholic nation under papal authority to a Protestant-leaning kingdom with the monarch as its spiritual head. This act is not just a political maneuver, it's a theological revolution, initiating a religious transformation that will have profound and lasting consequences for centuries. This is a common historical truth, marking the beginning of the English Reformation. The Act of Supremacy demands an oath of allegiance from all your subjects, acknowledging your supremacy and the legitimacy of your marriage to Anne. To refuse this oath is to commit treason. You begin a systematic crackdown on dissent. Monks, nuns, and prominent individuals who refuse to acknowledge your supremacy are imprisoned, tortured, and executed. The most famous victims are Sir Thomas More, your former Lord Chancellor, a brilliant humanist and devout Catholic, and Bishop John Fisher. Both refuse the oath, adhering to their conscience and their loyalty to the Pope. They are executed in 1535, their heads displayed on London Bridge as a grim warning. These executions, particularly of respected figures like More, send a chilling message throughout England. Nobody is safe from your wrath if they question your authority. This ruthless suppression of dissent, even from highly regarded individuals, shows the dark side of your newfound absolute power. Your relentless pursuit of a male heir continues. Anne Boleyn has several pregnancies after Elizabeth, but all result in miscarriages or stillbirths. The pressure on Anne is immense, unbearable. You begin to question her, just as you questioned Catherine. Perhaps you think, Anne is also cursed by God, or perhaps she is simply incapable of bearing a healthy son. Your gaze, ever restless, begins to wander. Your eye falls on Jane Seymour, one of Anne's ladies-in-waiting, a quiet, demure woman, seemingly the antithesis of the fiery Anne. By early 1536, your infatuation with Jane Seymour has blossomed into a fierce desire. Simultaneously, your disappointment and disillusionment with Anne Boleyn have reached a breaking point. Anne has failed to produce a son, and her sharp wit, once so captivating, now seems arrogant and irritating. You begin to listen to the whispers of your enemies at court, those who despise Anne and seek her downfall. These whispers accuse her of adultery, incest, and even treason. The accusations are likely baseless, fabricated by her enemies and amplified by your desperate need to rid yourself of her. This chilling willingness to accept, and perhaps orchestrate, baseless charges against a queen is one of the most disturbing aspects of your reign. In May 1536, the unthinkable happens. Anne Boleyn is arrested on charges of treason, adultery, incest with her own brother, George Boleyn, and conspiracy to murder you. Her trial is a sham, a foregone conclusion. She is found guilty. On May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn, Queen of England, is led to the scaffold at the Tower of London. You, in a twisted gesture of mercy, import a skilled French swordsman for her execution, rather than the axe, which was often messier. Anne maintains her dignity to the last, declaring her innocence and praying for you. The king. Her head is severed with a single stroke. Within days. You married Jane Seymour. The speed and brutality of Anne's downfall are terrifying. It sends an unmistakable message across England. No one, not even a queen, is safe from your wrath if they fail to deliver what you demand, or if they fall out of your favor. The casual manner in which you dispose of a wife, a queen, who failed to produce a male heir, is truly disturbing. This willingness to go to such extreme lengths for a son reveals the depth of your obsession and the terrifying power you wield. The ease with which you could orchestrate the destruction of a queen illustrates the terrifying reality of your absolute power. You are in the immediate aftermath of one of the most shocking events of your reign, the brutal execution of Anne Boleyn. It's May 1536, and the blood is barely dry on the Tower Hill scaffold. The whispers in court are of terror and awe. No one, not even a queen, is safe from your wrath if they fail to deliver your ultimate desire, a male heir. The chilling speed with which you discarded Anne, and your subsequent marriage to Jane Seymour just days later, sends an unmistakable message across England. Your will is absolute, and any obstacle to it will be ruthlessly crushed. This period solidifies your image as a monarch of unpredictable, terrifying power, driven by an unyielding, almost desperate obsession with Jane Seymour as your new queen. Your focus narrows with laser precision on the hope of a son. Jane is everything Anne was not: quiet, demure, and seemingly pliant. She represents stability, a return to traditional ideals after the tumultuous years with Anne. The country breathes a collective sigh of relief, hoping for peace and a legitimate male succession. You, too, feel a renewed sense of optimism, believing that God, finally, will bless you with the longed-for heir through this more virtuous union. This almost immediate remarriage, fueled by dynastic anxiety, is a critical step in understanding the escalating pattern of your marital history. As you embark on this new chapter, your chief minister, Thomas Cromwell, continues his relentless work, cementing your supremacy over the Church of England. The dissolution of the monasteries intensifies. Hundreds of monasteries, abbeys, and convents, once powerful centers of wealth, land, and spiritual life, are systematically closed down. Their vast properties are confiscated by the crown, their treasures seized, their monks and nuns dispersed. This provides you with an unimaginable influx of wealth, helping to fund your lavish court and military ambitions. But it also causes immense social upheaval. This economic windfall, a direct result of the break with Rome, significantly bolstered your royal treasury and power. It's often highlighted as a pragmatic, rather than purely religious, motive for your reformation. The dissolution is met with considerable resistance, particularly in the north of England, where Catholic traditions run deep and the monasteries are vital to local communities. In late 1536, a massive popular uprising erupts, known as the Pilgrimage of Grace. Tens of thousands of commoners, joined by nobles and clergy, march under banners bearing the 5 wounds of Christ, demanding the restoration of the monasteries and the end of your religious reforms. It's the greatest threat to your throne since the Wars of the Roses. You, however, meet this challenge with a combination of deception and brutal force. You offer pardons and promises of reform to the rebels, only to later renege on your word. Once the rebellion disbands, you unleash a brutal crackdown, executing hundreds of leaders and participants, including abbots, knights, and peasants. Their bodies left hanging in public squares as a grim warning. This ruthless suppression of dissent even from common people driven by sincere religious belief. Showcases the chilling extent of your tyranny and your absolute intolerance for any challenge to your authority. This specific detail of the pilgrimage of grace and your brutal response is a stark example of your increasingly despotic rule, while Cromwell meticulously dismantles the old religious order and crushes internal rebellion. Your personal focus remains solely on Jane Seymour and the hope she carries. And then, the longed-for miracle happens. In October 1537, Queen Jane gives birth to a son, Edward. The entire kingdom rejoices. Bells ring out across England. Bonfires are lit. And Te Deums are sung in every church. You, King Henry, are overjoyed, proclaiming this the happiest day of your life. You have a legitimate male heir, a prince to secure the Tudor dynasty, a living embodiment of God's blessing. This momentous birth, after years of agonizing struggle, brings immense relief and celebration throughout England. And for you personally, however, this profound joy is tragically short-lived. Just 12 days after giving birth, Queen Jane Seymour dies, likely from puerperal fever, childbed fever. The kingdom is plunged into mourning. You, despite your joy over Edward, are genuinely heartbroken. Jane was your beloved queen, the one who finally gave you the son you craved. Her death is a devastating blow, forcing you to confront the fragility of life and the painful reality that even the greatest triumphs can be accompanied by profound loss. You order a magnificent funeral for her, and she is buried with full honors. The only one of your wives to receive a queen's burial, this tragic death of Jane Seymour, often presented as your only truly loved wife, is a poignant detail that adds a layer of human vulnerability to your otherwise tyrannical persona. With Edward, your precious son, now secure, you realize the need to find a new wife. Not just for personal companionship, but to provide a spare heir. Another son to ensure the dynasty in case anything should happen to the sickly Edward. Your gaze turns towards Europe, seeking a suitable bride for political alliance. Your trusted minister, Thomas Cromwell, suggests Anne of Cleves, a German princess from a Protestant duchy. The alliance would bolster England's standing with European Protestant powers. A strategic move in a shifting religious landscape. This arranged marriage, driven by political expediency, highlights the continued intertwining of your personal life with state affairs. You are shown a flattering portrait of Anne of Cleves by Hans Holbein the Younger, a renowned court painter. The portrait depicts a woman of pleasant features. Based on this, and Cromwell's enthusiastic reports, you agree to the match. The marriage takes place in January 1540. However, the reality quickly falls short of your expectations. When you meet Anne in person, you are profoundly disappointed. You find her unattractive, her manners unrefined, and her German language skills a barrier to proper conversation. You famously complain, "I like her not." The marriage remains unconsummated, a disastrous personal failure that quickly becomes a political embarrassment. This infamous disappointment with Anne of Cleves, a common historical anecdote, shows your increasing capriciousness and self-absorption. Your immediate reaction is fury, directed squarely at Thomas Cromwell. He had orchestrated this disastrous marriage, and you hold him responsible for the insult to your royal person. Cromwell, who had served you so faithfully in breaking with Rome and dissolving the monasteries, suddenly finds himself in perilous waters, his enemies at court, eager to seize his power and wealth, capitalize on your displeasure, whispering accusations of heresy and treason. They remind you of his low birth, his ambition, and his radical Protestant leanings. This swift change of favor, turning on a loyal servant so easily, demonstrates the disturbing instability of your temperament and the extreme dangers of serving such an unpredictable king. In July 1540, Thomas Cromwell is arrested and swiftly executed without trial. A victim of your capricious anger and the relentless machinations of his court enemies, he is charged with treason and heresy, accused of having Protestant sympathies and attempting to undermine your religious policies. His death is a brutal, public spectacle, a testament to the chilling reality that even the most powerful and effective of your servants can fall at a moment's notice. With Cromwell gone, your direct hand in governance grows stronger, and your reign becomes even more autocratic. This sudden, brutal disposal of Cromwell, who had done so much to consolidate your power, is one of the most disturbing examples of your tyranny and ingratitude, almost immediately after Cromwell's execution. And with the annulment of your marriage to Anne of Cleves secured based on non-consummation, you marry your fifth wife, Catherine Howard. She is young, vivacious, and strikingly beautiful. A stark contrast to Anne of Cleves. You are deeply infatuated with her, showering her with jewels and affection, convinced that you have finally found happiness. She brings a fleeting joy to your increasingly isolated and aging court. This quick remarriage, once again driven by personal desire rather than political expediency, further highlights your relentless pursuit of happiness and validation through marriage. However, Catherine Howard's past and her youthful indiscretions quickly catch up to her. Whispers of premarital affairs and, more alarmingly, allegations of adultery after her marriage to you begin to circulate. These are brought to your attention by your Archbishop Cranmer and others who fear for the stability of the realm. You, the king who beheaded a queen on mere suspicion of adultery, react with a mixture of disbelief and uncontrollable rage. The thought that your young, beautiful wife might have betrayed you is an unbearable affront to your pride and honor. This discovery, and your violent reaction, foreshadows another grim chapter in your marital history. The investigation into Catherine Howard's conduct uncovers enough evidence, or at least enough plausible accusation, to damn her. Her alleged lovers are arrested and tortured. Her lady-in-waiting, Lady Rochford Jane Boleyn, the widow of Anne Boleyn's brother, who had allegedly facilitated some of Catherine's liaisons, is also implicated. In February 1542, Catherine Howard is arrested and tried for treason, a charge that now includes adultery by a queen. She is found guilty. On February 13th, 1542, less than 2 years after her marriage to you, she is executed on Tower Hill, her death. So soon after Anne Boleyn's sends another wave of terror through the court. This rapid succession of executed queens highlights the increasingly volatile and dangerous nature of your reign. Particularly for those closest to you, the pattern of marrying, becoming disillusioned, and then eliminating your wives had now been firmly established. It's a truly disturbing element of your personal history. By this point, your body is also beginning to betray you. The athletic, virile king of your youth is long gone. A jousting accident in 1536 had left you with a severely injured leg that never properly healed, eventually developing into a chronic ulcer that constantly oozed and festered. You are morbidly obese, weighing over 400 pounds, requiring mechanical devices to move you around the palace. Your immense waistline, reportedly 54 inches, is a far cry from the slender figure of your youth. The constant pain from your leg, combined with your increasing paranoia and volatile temper, makes you a terrifying and unpredictable figure. This physical decline, a significant historical fact, had a profound impact on your mental state and decision-making, contributing to your tyrannical behavior. You are a king ruling through fear, surrounded by courtiers who carefully guard their words and actions, terrified of incurring your unpredictable wrath. The charm and exuberance of your youth have been replaced by a brooding, suspicious, and often cruel disposition. The man who once delighted in music and poetry now presides over a court where whispers of treason and the shadow of the executioner's axe are constant companions. The once vibrant Renaissance prince has transformed into a corpulent, diseased tyrant, isolated by his own paranoia and the brutal consequences of his relentless pursuit of a male heir and absolute power. The kingdom, though outwardly compliant, lives in a state of suppressed terror. You are in the final, agonizing chapter of your life, a prisoner within your own decaying body. It's early 1547, the opulent chambers of Whitehall Palace, designed for a magnificent king, now feel more like a sick room, filled with the hushed whispers of anxious courtiers and the heavy scent of ineffective medicines. The youthful vigor that once characterized you, King Henry VIII, has long since vanished, consumed by disease and decades of relentless pursuit of your own desires. Your leg ulcer, a constant, festering wound, throbs with incessant pain, making every movement a Herculean effort. Your massive weight, a shocking contrast to the athletic figure of your youth, presses down, making breathing difficult and sleep elusive. You are a king, yes, but one tormented by his own physical collapse. This protracted physical suffering, often downplayed, is a crucial, disturbing element of your final days. The court around you is a hive of suppressed tension and nervous anticipation. Your once unpredictable rages have become more frequent, fueled by pain, paranoia, and perhaps a dawning realization of your impending end. No one dares to speak freely, for fear of triggering your unpredictable wrath, the memory of those you had elevated and then ruthlessly destroyed. Wolsey. More? Cromwell. Anne Boleyn. Catherine Howard hangs heavy in the air like a perpetual fog. Loyalty is a fragile thing in your court, easily shattered by suspicion or perceived slights. Courtiers plot and scheme, positioning themselves for influence with your young son, Edward, knowing that the balance of power will soon shift dramatically. This atmosphere of deep-seated fear and political maneuvering is a dark legacy of your reign. Even your final wife, Catherine Parr, for all her quiet strength and devotion, finds herself navigating perilous waters. Her genuine piety and intellectual curiosity, particularly her leanings towards the Protestant reforms, occasionally clash with your own more conservative theological views. You are the supreme head of the church. Yes, but your personal beliefs remain a complex, often contradictory blend of old and new. While you had broken with Rome, you still clung fiercely to doctrines like transubstantiation, and to deny them was heresy, punishable by death. Catherine, a devout woman who believed in personal interpretation of Scripture, would sometimes engage you in theological debates that bordered on the dangerous. She had, after all, narrowly escaped arrest for heresy. A stark reminder that even those closest to you were never entirely safe from your unpredictable, and often lethal, religious pronouncements. This fascinating detail of Catherine Parr's theological tightrope walk highlights the deep, unresolved religious tensions that plagued your court until the very end. Your final years are marked by a deepening isolation. The companions of your youth, those with whom you shared jousts, hunts, and revelry, are almost all gone. Some succumbed to illness, but many more met their end on the scaffold, victims of your ruthless pursuit of power or your unpredictable wrath. You are a lonely figure, surrounded by sycophants and terrified servants, alienated by the very power you wielded. The once vibrant Renaissance court, famed for its music, art, and intellectual discourse, has become a grim reflection of your own decaying body and increasingly paranoid mind. The weight of your reign, the profound changes you instigated, now settle heavily upon you. You had transformed England irrevocably. You severed its ties with the venerable Roman Catholic Church, dissolved its monasteries, and established the monarch as the supreme authority in both temporal and spiritual matters. You had centralized power, building a stronger, more absolute monarchy, But at the cost of civil liberties and countless lives, the religious landscape of England is a patchwork of unresolved tensions, with conservative Catholics mourning the old ways and fervent Protestants yearning for further reform. This religious fragmentation, a direct consequence of your personal great matter, will plague England for generations after your death. You remain haunted by the question of succession. Despite finally having a healthy male heir in Edward, you understood the fragility of life, especially for a young, often sickly child. Your obsession with securing the Tudor dynasty, the driving force behind so many of your brutal decisions, persists to the very end. Your final act of succession in 1544, reinstating your daughters Mary and Elizabeth into the line of inheritance after Edward and his potential heirs, was a pragmatic, last-ditch effort to ensure stability. It was a stark reversal of your earlier pronouncements, where you had declared both daughters illegitimate. This move, a crucial historical fact, demonstrates your enduring concern for the stability of the realm, perhaps even a subtle acknowledgement of their worth, but primarily driven by the overarching need to prevent a return to the bloody wars of the Roses. The depth of your personal affection versus dynastic pragmatism in this decision is still a point of considerable academic debate among historians. You also began to confront the question of your own soul. Despite the radical break with Rome and the dissolution of the monasteries, you remained, in your own way, a deeply religious man. Your life had been a quest for salvation, bound up with your desperate need for a male heir. Now, as death approached, you faced the profound consequences of your actions, the moral and spiritual implications of your reforms and your ruthlessness. You spent time engaging in theological discussions with your bishops and scholars, seeking reassurance about the fate of your soul, perhaps grappling with the enormity of the changes you had wrought. By January 1547, your physical condition deteriorates rapidly and irrevocably. You are largely immobile, confined to your bed, racked with incessant pain and difficulty breathing. You knew the end was near, yet to the last. You clung to life with a stubborn pride, perhaps a deep-seated fear of judgment. You, the king who had once embodied boundless energy and vitality, now lay a broken, suffering man, isolated by the very power you had so relentlessly pursued. You pass away in the early hours of January 28, 1547, at Whitehall Palace. At the age of 55, your long and profoundly impactful reign of 38 years finally comes to an end. The silence that falls over Whitehall is not just one of mourning, but of immense relief. Your young son, Edward VI, a frail boy of just 9, inherits the throne, destined for a short and religiously zealous reign. Your death marks the end of a turbulent era, and the beginning of a new period of religious and political instability. As your successors grapple with the monumental changes you had wrought, your corpse, massive and afflicted, begins to decay rapidly, famously leaking fluids even before your funeral procession reaches Windsor Castle. It's a rather ignominious end for a king who spent his life projecting an image of strength and virility. This disturbing physical detail, often mentioned by chroniclers, stands in stark contrast to the powerful image you tried to maintain. The legacy you leave behind is one of immense paradox and profound disturbance. You are remembered as the king of 6 wives, 2 of whom you ruthlessly executed, all in your relentless pursuit of a male heir. You are the monarch who, for deeply personal reasons, severed England from the authority of the Pope, unleashing the forces of the Reformation and forever changing the spiritual landscape of your nation. You centralized power, transformed the monarchy, and laid some foundations for England's future as a powerful nation-state. But you were also a tyrannical ruler, a man whose personal whims became national law, whose paranoia led to the executions of loyal servants and innocent queens. You were a king who squandered immense wealth on costly wars. Leaving your kingdom in debt, you inflicted widespread terror and suffering through your purges and religious persecutions. Your reign was a period of both incredible transformation and profound brutality, leaving an indelible mark on English history. Your story, a disturbing tale of power, obsession, and the dark side of absolute rule, continues to echo through the centuries, a chilling reminder of how a monarch's personal desires can irrevocably shape the destiny of an entire nation. The lingering question, for historians and for all who reflect on your life, remains: was your pursuit of ultimate authority a necessity for England, or simply the unchecked ambition of a man consumed by his own desires? You are breathing your last. The long, agonizing final chapter of your life is drawing to a close in the royal chambers of Whitehall Palace. It's the pre-dawn hours of January 28, 1547. The heavy tapestries, the opulent furniture, the very air itself feels suffocating, thick with the scent of illness and the silent tension of awaiting your final breath. The vibrant, imposing figure of your youth, King Henry VIII, has withered into a bloated, diseased man, trapped within a body ravaged by chronic pain, a festering leg ulcer, and immense obesity. Each gasp for air is a struggle, each shift in your bed a torturous ordeal. You are a king, yes, but one utterly dominated by the relentless decay of your own flesh. This physical torment, often overlooked in the grand sweep of history, is the true, miserable backdrop to your final, disturbing days around your deathbed. The court is a stage of hushed drama and barely concealed ambition. Your most trusted physicians, helpless against the inevitable, hover nervously, their faces grim. Your closest advisors, men like Edward Seymour, Jane Seymour's brother, and William Paget, stand vigilant, not just in sorrow, but in calculated anticipation of the power vacuum your death will create. They dare not speak openly of your impending demise, for fear of triggering one last, terrifying outburst of your notorious temper. The atmosphere is thick with a chilling pragmatism, a sense that the long, terrifying reign of the lion is finally coming to an end, and the vultures are circling. This pervasive atmosphere of fear and calculated self-interest among your inner circle is a dark testament to the nature of your absolute rule. Your final wife, Catherine Parr, remains by your side, a figure of quiet devotion and enduring strength. She has navigated the treacherous currents of your unpredictable moods and conservative religious beliefs with remarkable skill and resilience. She has provided you with a stability that none of your previous wives, save Jane Seymour, truly could. She has been a kind stepmother to your children, fostering relationships that might one day secure the succession. Yet, even her life has hung by a thread, threatened by accusations of heresy. Her survival in your court, a testament to her profound intelligence and spiritual fortitude, is a unique detail that highlights the constant peril of proximity to your unpredictable power as the end nears. Your thoughts, though perhaps clouded by fever and pain, surely turn to your legacy and the succession, the obsession that consumed so much of your reign, the desperate, often brutal pursuit of a male heir has, in a way, been fulfilled with Prince Edward. Yet he is a frail, sickly boy, a fact that must surely rekindle your anxieties about the future of the Tudor dynasty. Your final act of succession in 1544, reinstating your daughters Mary and Elizabeth into the line of inheritance after Edward, was a desperate, pragmatic attempt to ensure stability. It was a remarkable reversal of your earlier decisions, driven by an overriding fear of a return to the bloody wars of the roses that had plagued England for so long. This late-stage flexibility, driven by existential dynastic fears, is a fascinating point of debate among historians. Questioning the true motivations behind your final disposition of your children's fates, you are not merely dying. You are witnessing the passing of an era, the profound changes you initiated the English Reformation, the break with papal authority, the dissolution of the monasteries, and the establishment of the monarch as the supreme head of the church have irrevocably altered England. You shattered centuries of tradition, amassed immense wealth and power for the crown, and set England on a distinct Protestant path. Yet, you also left a nation deeply divided by religious schisms, a theological landscape riddled with contradictions, and a people reeling from the economic and social upheaval of your reforms. This complex, often brutal, legacy of religious transformation is a fundamental aspect of your reign that continues to resonate through English history. Your last conscious moments are shrouded in legend. It is said that your final words were an agonized groan, or perhaps a whispered assent to the Archbishop Cranmer's offer of spiritual counsel. Regardless, the great, disturbing reign of King Henry VIII finally culminates in silence. You pass away in the early hours of January 28, 1547. The silence that descends upon Whitehall Palace is not solely one of grief. It is also one of immense, collective relief. The unpredictable, terrifying tyrant is finally gone. Your young son, Edward II, is a precocious but sickly 9-year-old, is proclaimed king. His reign, however, will be tragically short, marked by zealous Protestant reforms that you, in your more conservative moments, might have found shocking. Your death opens the door to another turbulent period of English history, a continued struggle for religious and political identity, all rooted in the momentous changes you so brutally initiated. Your massive, decaying corpse quickly becomes a grim, disturbing testament to your final suffering. Chroniclers speak of fluids leaking from your coffin even before your elaborate funeral procession reaches Windsor Castle. A rather ignominious and unpleasant end for a king who had projected such an image of strength and virility throughout his life. This morbid detail, though often dismissed as apocryphal, highlights the stark contrast between your imposing public persona and the frail, suffering man you became. The legacy you leave behind is one of unparalleled complexity and profound disturbance. You are forever remembered as the king of 6 wives, a figure of immense personal drama, 2 of whom you ruthlessly sent to the executioner's block in your relentless, obsessive pursuit of a male heir. You are the monarch who, for deeply personal reasons, tore England away from the spiritual authority of the Pope, unleashing the forces of the Reformation and fundamentally reshaping the spiritual and political landscape of your nation. You centralized royal power, transformed the monarchy into an absolute force, and laid some of the crucial foundations for England's future as a powerful nation-state. But your methods were often brutal. You were a tyrannical ruler, a man whose personal whims became national law, whose paranoia led to the executions of loyal servants, innocent queens, and devout subjects. You squandered immense wealth on costly, often inconclusive, wars, leaving your kingdom heavily in debt. You inflicted widespread terror and suffering through your purges, your religious persecutions, and your arbitrary justice. Your reign was a period of both incredible transformation and profound brutality, leaving an indelible mark on English history, a legacy deeply intertwined with both magnificent achievement and immense human cost. Your story, the disturbing story of King Henry VIII, continues to echo through the centuries, a chilling reminder of how a monarch's personal desires, obsessions, and unchecked power can irrevocably shape the destiny of an entire nation. It's a tale that fascinates and repels in equal measure, a testament to the enduring human struggle between personal ambition and public duty, and the terrifying consequences when one triumphs absolutely over the other. The image of the once vibrant Renaissance prince, decaying into a paranoid tyrant, remains a powerful and unsettling vision from the annals of history.